What's up, 8th grade science? Welcome back. Today we are talking again about stars, but we're doing something a little bit different in this video. We are talking this time about the HR diagram. So the HR diagram is a special diagram that scientists use to talk about how old stars are and what they look like at different points in their life, because stars change over time just like you and me do. So we're going to talk about 3 keywords today. That's in the upper box, and then we're going to use a diagram like this to do some question answering. All right? So very first, let's start by taking our notes. The first thing you're going to see is luminosity. What luminosity means is how bright a star is. So we can go ahead and write that. How bright a star is. Luminosity talks about star brightness. So if something has a high luminosity, it's very bright. If something has a low luminosity, it's very dark, okay? And that is one of the 2 ways that scientists classify stars. They decide what type of star it is based on its luminosity. We're going to skip the middle for now. We're going to go to that 3rd word, temperature, which y'all know, and then I have K in parentheses. We're going to talk about that. But the temperature just talks about how hot the star is. So when scientists are ranking stars, they look at luminosity, how bright it is. They also look at temperature, how hot it is. Okay? Then depending on those 2 things, they break up these stars into special groups, and those are called spectral classes. So a spectral class is a special star group name. On the chart, you will see it split up into a number of different spectral classes. Spectral classes mean how bright the star is. I'm sorry, that's a special name for where the star is found. That's a spectral class. Luminosity is how bright a star is. So then we're going to look at this chart. This chart is super important. This is on the STAR test so much, and it's so easy if we just pay attention to a couple key factors. All right, very first thing. When you look at the HR diagram, the Hertzsprung-Russell diagram, I want y'all really paying attention to temperature. Can you underline that? And I also want y'all paying attention to luminosity. Okay, so let's label our axes to figure out where the hottest star is, where the brightest star is, all that. So you start with temperature. The reason we have a K here is this is called Kelvin. Kelvin's a special temperature that scientists use for things that are really hot. Because if you talked about a star in Fahrenheit, like the degrees we use, it would not get nearly hot enough. You'd have to use a huge number. So we use a special temperature called Kelvin. And then as you look along this axis, the top part, it's got a bunch of numbers. All right. You'll notice the highest numbers are on the left side. So go ahead and write hottest. All the way up on the left. The hottest stars are way on the left side. 25,000 Kelvin. All right, well then if the hottest are on the left, the coldest are on the right. It's about 3,000 Kelvin. So if you're looking for the hottest stars, they are to the left of the HR diagram. Right? And then the same idea for luminosity. Remember, we talked about luminosity, we talked about temperature. So if you're looking at luminosity here, the brightest stars are at the top. That 10 to the 4th is something called scientific notation. That just means 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. That is what 2 to the 4th means. But all you need to know is that that's the brightest. And then at the bottom, it is the dimmest. Dimmest just means not bright. Brightest on top, dimmest on bottom. Okay? And then the last thing we talked about are these spectral classes. So you see here, it's got O, B, A, F, G, K, M. Those don't have any meaning except they're just little ways to sort the stars. You're going to see how we're going to use those on a few problems a little bit later. Okay? So we are going to talk about 4 groups of stars today. You got 4 letters, 4 special groups. The first one I want y'all to outline with me. These are called the main sequence stars. This big thing through the middle. That's called the main sequence. For a while in science class, we'll have a chart of this. It'll go away. We get closer to our next mastery quiz. You're going to have to memorize this. Main sequence goes right there through that middle. All right. And then B, I'm going to switch to red. Section B here. These stars are called the giants. There's no size on this chart. Even though they're called giants, we don't know anything about their size. Because remember, this chart just shows you their brightness and their temperature. B is the giants. Right? C, I'll switch to blue. see in the upper right corner, this is the supergiant. And then D, I'll go to green. This little interesting area all by itself. These are called the white dwarfs. So what you're going to have to be able to do today is make comparisons between stars. And the last thing I want to point out before I get y'all going on the quizzes activity, which is going to follow this, is look right here. I'm going to circle it in yellow. It's already in yellow. It's not very bright. I'll circle it in black. Right here is our sun. So could y'all make sure you can either draw it or I'm going to label it to the sun. You're going to have to make comparisons to our sun a lot. And the sun usually won't be labeled on the chart. But easy for y'all is like the sun is right in the dead middle of this chart. It's right in the middle of the main sequence. So if you're ever not remembering where you're looking, just remember sun right in the middle. Just start from the middle of the chart. Okay? Today what you'll be doing is you will be comparing stars. So I might ask you, what is brighter, a supergiant or a white dwarf? You'd have to use the chart. Maybe I would ask you, what is hotter, a white dwarf or a main sequence star? Those are the types of questions you'll have to answer, all right? Right now that you're finished taking notes, we're actually going to skip the guided practice section in the packet today, and I'm just going to put those activities in quizzes. So what I want y'all to do is close out this video, use your notes, open up the quizzes link in Classroom. There are going to be, how many is it? 12 questions for y'all on HR diagrams. And once you are done with those 12, I'm going to give Mighty Bucks out to the highest 5 scorers. That means try it as many times as you can. The highest 5 scores on quizzes I will take, and y'all will earn a Mighty Buck. All right? Good luck. Get to it.